Well, it's a day of relaxation. Time to go on to Disney Plus to see what I can find on there for me. Andor Season 2 is pretty good, just unfortunate that 4 seasons were cramped into Season 2. I heard the Thunderbolts did good for Marvel, but I don't want to go all the way to the theater to watch it. It's too expensive nowadays. The first episode of the new season of Phineas and Ferb was pretty nice, but I don't know if I'm going to stick around for the rest of it. Man, I have no clue what I want to watch. Though I hear that Lilo and Stitch is going to get a live action adaptation of it. Maybe I can watch the trailer and see what's there. Okay, here we go. And what the heck is that? It's not. Oh, what's it got there? I'm sold. Gonna say an unpopular opinion, but the live action Disney movies haven't been that good. What a shocker. I know. Now give me my subscribers. We are halfway through 2025 and Disney has already dropped the 2 live action movies they are going to have until 2026 when they will eventually drop the Moana live action remake. It's been 10 years for that movie. March 21st saw the release of the Snow White movie, which did so badly in the box office that even Disney took their foot off of the gas when it came to making more at this moment. Now, if you're a higher up at Disney during this time, you're probably like, dang, that made us lose a lot of money. How are we gonna do to get back all that money? Hey, wait a minute. May 23rd had brought the release of the live-action Lilo and Stitch movie, which by the time I believe in the second or third week had already eclipsed the amount that the regular animated movie made during that time. Now, I wasn't planning on making a video or even seeing the live-action Lilo and Stitch, as it was probably going to be similar to a lower grade than the 2002 classic, until I saw the videos and just people talking about it. I don't think many viewers knew how badly they were going to bastardize it here, but they somehow did. I could make this a review of the movie and go into more detail on how it kind of stomped on the concept of Ohana and its odd and irritating pacing it has throughout the movie, but I actually really wanted to focus on the characters in the movie, specifically one, as you can tell in the thumbnail. For the past 2 weeks, all I saw was just people talking about how the movie ruined this character in the film, whether that be on Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts. That is, whenever they didn't show me that adult NSFW AI robot ad almost every time. Like I said, you already know which character I'm talking about here, but I wanted to talk about Jumba, everyone's favorite animated alien uncle from outer space, which this is not. I was annoyed with how they changed Mulan in the 2020 live action version and making Chi a superpower, but you can make the argument that this is way worse due to its stark differences. And that is why I'm here making this video. I wanted to take a look at both versions, compare and contrast, and see where they went wrong, where did they really mess up at. But before I did, I wanted to watch the animated version first, as honest to God, it's been quite a while since I last saw it, and I've grown more of an appreciation to it as I've gotten older. Even watched that new Looney Tunes movie as well, which I gotta say was a great watch too. The animation in that film looked fun, really felt like watching classic Looney Tunes. The characters they introduced were great, and it was really nice that they brought back Petunia and that shut up! And then I saw the live action version, and for legal reasons, I bought tickets to see it. And what can I say? It wasn't as good as the original. It was not that good. But before I get into the characters' differing personalities and the scenes that they have in the movie, let's just take it nice and slow and simple by just looking at the designs for the characters. One thing that I didn't realize until I took more of a closer look to it is that it seems like live action Jumba is a bit more slimmer than the original Jumba. Honestly, no problem with that. I think both are fine. On top of the live action's appearance, he stays wearing the same outfit, quote unquote, stays wearing, which honestly takes a bit of creativeness, as the animated Jumbo was seen wearing different outfits. But it also feels like he's less expressive in this movie whenever he has to show any sort of emotion or whenever he's talking. It's something that the live action remake movies have been really inconsistent on, like for example with The Lion King, and whenever Jumba is talking, it feels monotone. And also, live action Jumba looks weird. There's a reason why most characters don't work well when it's brought to live action, and for that, and also Pleakley too, it doesn't work here. It looks very ugly. Also, while looking at the animated Jumba, he has pale pink and purple skin, which according to this Disney wiki I found, it is the case. So I was very confused when they just decided to add a bunch of hair onto Jumba instead of just a few strands that we've seen in the animated. But live action Jumba still has some smooth skin showing. It is still less appealing to look at as it mostly just looked like a bunch of wrinkles. And now I'm mostly done talking about Jumba's appearance. And what I mean by that, I'm done talking about alien Jumba. Now let's talk about disguised Jumba. In the animated version, Jumba and Pleakley they want a bunch of clothing to hopefully disguise as the humans, which they worked. It added some comedy to that, being that the humans are so oblivious to their distinct differences that they're just, yeah, they're humans. But in the live action, seeing that I guess they didn't want to animate Jumba and Pleakley, it probably would have cost them too much money. Poor Disney. But now they changed it in the live action version by just having them have a little gadget that can just change them into humans. And the comedy, since they can't do the comedy with the funny clothing, is instead they just changed it to them trying to get used to the human legs. Doing this has already taken so much charm and comedy it had with Jumba and Pleakley with their funny human disguises. But now that brings me into my next point, being the role casting and the voice. Animated Jumba is played by the late David Ogden Stiers, who has also played other roles for Disney like Governor Radcliffe in Pocahontas, Cogsworth in Beauty and the Beast, and Nicky Flippers in Hoodwink. It's not Disney, I just wanted to point it out. I mean, I didn't know. You probably didn't know. Now we both know. Live action Jumba is played by Zach Galifianakis, and I should probably state there's nothing wrong with having Zach play as Jumba. That's not the problem. It's everything else that's the problem. First notable issue is that if you listen to David's Jumba, then listen to Zach's Jumba, you can tell there's a very notable difference already, and that is because Zach's Jumba doesn't have the Russian accent. No accent to be found.
What hideous planet is caught in your crosshairs?
And it's not like Zach didn't want to do the Russian accent. It seemed more like the people behind the movie didn't want him to do it for some reason.
The original Jumba has this kind of almost Russian accent. Did you?
Listen, I told them, tell me what to do. I think these days accents are tricky. Maybe the PC. I don't know what happens. I don't know how those decisions are made. Like, no German, no Russian, no accents. But you still can kind of do a Russian one as the villain, let's be honest.
I mean, Thunderbolts.
It's an odd decision to go with, as it makes it feel less like Jumba, and it's just more like Zach is an alien now. And then on top of that, you add the directing given to Zach in regards to the script and his line reads. Because both of those two things combined, along with the lacking Russian accent, it feels like Zach just read his lines once, and then they were like, does that sound good? That sounds good. On to the next scene. It's just that the way that Jumba talks and sounds in this movie is someone I'd see get bullied in high school or be the school's president of the esports team. No offense to anyone that is or was. I've seen a lot of people say that, oh, they should have casted David Harbour as Jumba instead because Red Guardian accent. I do agree with, I think he'd make a good fit, but in defense of Zach, I don't think it's fair to him as he wasn't allowed or just able to do the Russian accent. They didn't let him. So while I do think Zach was a major miscast, who knows if it was going to be a good or bad accent if he was allowed to do so. First, Disney makes you undrag Pleakley, which is kind of weird that they seem very adamant about that. Then second, you take away Jumba's Russian accent. What's next? I honestly don't want to know what's next. I'm gonna get to what's next actually. So to get to this one, we need to talk about Gantu. And in terms of Gantu, we have no Gantu. The directors decided to take Gantu out of the movie because, in their words, he didn't work well in the movie, which I might sound like a broken record because a lot of people else have said it when they had to talk about the movie, so I mentioned it as well. But maybe don't make the movie! I feel like there could have been ways to show Gantu in the movie, whether that be him just being in the shadows, showing off maybe a part of his body like his legs, and then into the finale of it, that third act, you just show all of Gantu, and then kind of do it as much as possible without spending a lot of money. So no more Gantu means no more Gantu as a villain, and they're not gonna make Great Councilwoman the villain either, which means the role of villain has been bestowed onto Jumba. Jumba is the villain, which if you're someone that grew up watching the animated version, that's blasphemy. Hush push. I got actually a little bit on my mic. That's gross. Ew. And even when they made Jumba the villain, he's not a good villain. He's very generic too, which is kind of sad because Zach can do a good villain role. If you've seen the Lego Batman movie when he played Joker, he honestly did a good job, and I'd say he's a very underrated version of the Joker. I must say though, I'm kind of lying when I say villain, as in Funky Frogbait's video talking about the movie as a whole, they mentioned something that viewers may forget watching this, is that there's really no villain in this movie.
If you think about it, the original Lilo and Stitch really has no villain, unless you count Gantu, which, I mean, come on. Every character that introduces conflict to the story is carrying out what they perceive to be a necessary duty or their biological programming.
Link to their video in the description below. Jumba did classify himself as an evil scientist, but he was more of just a scientist that wanted to spread chaos wherever he would go for his pleasure. What's odd to me is that the producer of the movie, Jonathan Elrich, in regards to having Jumba be the main antagonist, being that it would amplify its family and community themes, is quoted saying Jumba is a father figure. A terrible delinquent father figure, but a father figure nonetheless to Stitch. I'm sorry, but 1, we must have not seen the same movie, and 2, yeah, no, it'd be the same as 1. It really shows that the producer is just really trying to bank off of the nostalgia more than making the movie make sense. Because you don't see Jumba become that fatherly or uncle role for Stitch or even Lilo until the end of the film and other later installments for movies and shows. Because let me tell you, in no way is any kid growing up to watch this version of Lilo and Stitch is going to walk away seeing Jumba as a father-like figure positively or negatively in that role. And they could have done something even more generic, though still kind of save this character in some type of way by making him one of those redeemable villains instead of just villain Pete. I almost said villain Peter and it almost made me think of Retep. They could have instead made him a redeemable villain instead of a villain period, but with one scene later on in the 3rd act, it's too late to try that at all. So combining that all together, as in the creepy look of Jumba, the Russianless voice accent, poor directing to its actor, rewriting of an established character, cringe dialogue, and generic characteristics gives us an evil nerd that is prancing around on the shell of a beloved character for many fans. It feels like he would just wear a fedora as he's scratching his alien nutsack out in public, thinking that nobody was watching. Look at how they massacred our big boy here. Now I want to get into the scenes that Jumba is in, and I felt like I should start off with the scene that was in the animated version that is not in the live action version, being the scene where Jumba and Pleakley camp out of Lilo's house for the first night. During this scene, Jumba is watching Stitch and laughing at his destructive program kicking in, then wanting to try on the wig and feel like a sexy bitch too. A few seconds later, it cuts back to Jumba watching Stitch, how there is nothing for him to destroy now, and Jumba mentioning how he didn't give Stitch any other purpose, and where Stitch finds the ugly ducking book. What's good about this scene is that it makes Jumba more fleshed out. It's starting the building grounds of character development for him and not making him just a one-note character, while also leading up to another scene later on in the film. The live action version unfortunately just takes all that away and just has Jumba and Pleakley stay at a hotel and use the portal gun whenever Jumba feels like being a little evil. Still being on the topic of the ugly duckling metaphor, let's move on to later in that movie with said metaphor. After the surfing incident occurs, Naughty sings Aloha Oi to Lilo, Lilo giving a heartfelt talk to Stitch before he leaves, and Jumba and Pleakley getting fired. You then have Stitch being awoken in the forest by Jumba, where they have a little moment to themselves. Stitch tells Jumba he's waiting for his family to find him, but Jumba, who would be Stitch's last chance at family at this point, shuts it down and repeats to him what his purpose was. When Stitch tries to say maybe, Jumba calmly shuts it down once more. Stitch rejects this purpose by running away back to his old family in Lilo. Cut to Lilo's house as Nani leaves for another job opportunity. Stitch arrives and so does Jumba right behind. However, during this skirmish at the house, Jumba is only focused on Stitch, and halfway through the destruction of the two, Pleakley arrives and deals with Lilo in hilarious fashion. Jumba and Stitch do that other funny thing with the gun. Pleakley takes Lilo outside to safety and the house blows up. Stitch then witnesses the conversation between Nani and Bubbles as Lilo runs away. Stitch finds the family photo. Lilo then blames him for what has transpired, to where he reveals himself as an alien. Then they both get captured by Gantu. But now in the live action version, you have the surfing scene, though done slightly differently and less appealing. Next scene is Jumba getting fired. Only Jumba. Pleakley is deputized to bring Jumba back, which is when Jumba turns on him. Cut back to the house, Stitch overhears a conversation between the sisters inside the house and outside when Nani sings Aloha Oi to Lilo, and that's what makes him leave instead of Lilo's heartfelt talk with Stitch, and he goes back to the dog shelter. Cut to the morning, the new social character they have in this film and Bubbles are here to pick up Lilo. She's already made that decision, to where there is no Lilo in sight as she is gone to find Stitch. Somehow she knew that Stitch went back to the dog shelter, which I digress, we're not talking. Moving on. Lilo then has that heartfelt conversation with Stitch, which feels more like a combination of that evening talk Lilo had and the morning talk with Jumba. I'm like watching this part over again, and I feel like I need to specify better the morning talk as in how Stitch is feeling, not Lilo acting like Jumba. That would have been honestly pretty funny. Can you imagine just Stitch is like, last, and then Lilo's like, you were meant to destroy. Good puppy, you are my puppy, destroy puppy. Albeit, though it is combined, it feels more watered down version of it. And then Jumba arrives through a portal. Both ways are subtle in the way they show Stitch being part of the reason why Lilo and Nani are about to be separated for each other, but in the way the live action version fails here is that they fail to show Stitch feeling lost, as they just have him go back to the shelter because they removed the ugly duckling scene. It's not in the live action version, so it just comes off to Stitch running away from his problems instead. By the way, just feel like I have to mention, sorry that I'm talking a lot about Stitch here. I know it's a video about Jumba. It feels necessary, promise, I know. Let's keep going now. You then have Lilo talking to Stitch and having that calm one-on-one interaction moment instead of Jumba having that, which to me doesn't have that same emotional impact, as they should have done that together earlier before Stitch ran away. You don't even get this much needed small break when Jumba gets through the portal, because as soon as he does, it immediately erupts into chaos with the dogs barking and then a portal funny moment because he's going up and down, haha, now laugh.
Please clap.
Elrich said that he wanted to show Jumba as a terrible delinquent father figure, yet whenever he has the chance to do so, he doesn't and has yet to show me throughout the film, as we're in the third act at this point. You then have the fight and the destruction at the house scene, but the first of it starts off with Lilo and Stitch running away, which is odd because Stitch would have acted on its nature of destruction that it was created for. Stitch in this movie is very tame compared to the animated version, and the only destruction that Stitch does in this house is portal a fridge to drop on top of Jumba. Other than that, Jumba's doing all the destruction here. Once Lilo and Stitch beat Jumba, he then mentions why the only reason Stitch picked Lilo was for his own protection. So now you just have Jumba explaining it to her instead of her realizing it afterwards when the house is destroyed, because oh, Lilo's just a 6-year-old girl. She's not gonna figure it out on herself. Jingle, 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 jingle. After Stitch is exposed, he willingly goes with Jumba before the house collapses in on itself. The final scene I have to talk about these two films is the rescue scene, where in the animated, Gantu is escaping with Lilo and Stitch has to go save her, whereas in the live action, it's the vice versa way. And why live action Jumba isn't Jumba, just somebody that I used to know. Anxiety. Okay, so in the animated version, Gantu captures both Lilo and Stitch. Stitch escapes and gets hit with a branch. Jumba beats up Stitch like a squeaky chew toy. It's when Nani goes up to Jumba and Pleakley, they stop what they're doing to turn away and ignore her. They both try to act dumb until Nani lets out her emotions to where the guilt hits not Pleakley, but Jumba. Nani wants them to bring back Lilo, to where Pleakley begins to yap about galactic law. Jumba cuts him off to say the point of the problem. They're just here for Stitch. Why this scene is so important is because when Jumba first encountered Stitch at the dog shelter, Pleakley immediately considered the situation to be too hazardous, to where Jumba responds that he won't hit her being Lilo. And then when we get to the scene where Jumba and Stitch are fighting in the house, and when Lilo starts to beat up Jumba with the broom, he just pushes her away because, again, they're just here for Stitch. Going back to Nani feeling defeated that she may never see her sister again, Stitch mentions Ohana and is able to persuade Jumba to help rescue Lilo. The idea for Jumba and Pleakley were to be antagonists up to this point, while also being comedical and having depth and character development too. Live action Jumba has None of these scenes, even for someone that is thrusted into this now villain role. And now we get to my final part, being that Jumba just sucks at being a villain. So because Gantu is not here for our protagonist to go save Lilo, it is instead Jumba capturing Stitch and for our protagonist to go save him and presumably Lilo who is on board. So you don't have Stitch or Lilo to go and convince the humans to save whoever it is they have on board. Instead, you have Nani convincing this movie's Bubbles to help them go save Lilo. And they didn't even chase down the ship, they just found it as it was crash landing into the water, which they then eventually saved Lilo and Stitch once it crashes. Long story short, on the ship, Lilo and Stitch are easily able to defeat Jumba with no help at all. That's something Stitch was able to do in both movies, but I need to mention the difference again. One is a antagonistic comedic duo, where the other is a one-man villain trying to be taken seriously. Hopefully this is a good comparison, but for my anime fans out there, think of like Vegeta in the Saiyan and Namek saga, and he just keeps getting beaten no matter how strong he gets back by Kid Gohan and Krillin, no matter what. Also, for a time comparison, it took them 5 minutes to beat Gantu, about 5 minutes, whereas in the live action version, it took them pretty much just 3 minutes to beat Jumba. And then the next time they showed Jumba is the last time they showed Jumba, as he is beamed up by the Galactic Federation and to be never seen again. Just as quickly as he was defeated, he is gone. That's all the yapping I have left from scenes that I want to highlight the most here. So now let's compare the two one last time. In the animated version, Jumba is a comedic, antagonistic mad scientist, hyper fixated on his experiments with a charming Russian accent that as the movie goes on, watches the changes in his experiments and how the sisters have an impact on Stitch, slowly develops into a protagonist that helps rescue Lilo and is shown to become a father or uncle figure showcased at the end of the film and in later movies and shows. In the live action version, Jumba is a boring and half-assed villain that has been devoid of all charm and development, lacking a Russian accent and acts more like your average Pokemon card scalper, has negative experiences with his gay alien bestie, has a weird fixation on hating family and attachment, and is just a pushover that is easily thwarted by a 6-year-old girl and her blue dog thing and becomes a character you think about just as quickly as you forget them. Jumba is also hairy. I mentioned this earlier in the video, but I want to mention it again. Due to Snow White's failure at the box office, Disney has taken their foot off the gas when it comes to making more Disney live action movies at this moment. And one of those that they were working on that got canceled was Tangled. But with Lilo and Stitch just hitting $1 billion in the box office worldwide by the time I finished writing the script, can't believe I almost missed this, but they just announced about a week ago that they're working on Lilo and Stitch 2. Oh my god. And with their next live action film being Moana, aka The Rock and his friend Moana and the chicken, who's to say they don't re-greenlit the idea? I don't think they will, but who's to say they wouldn't? God. So until then, I will be here keeping my eyes peeled for when the live action Tangle will be re-announced once more. And we're there, they will take out Mother Gothel as the villain, or maybe just have her as a nice little spirit, and they make Maximus the horse the villain instead, and voiced by Paul Rudd. And folks, that is where I'm going to end my unnecessarily long character analysis video on Jumba. So yeah, that's the end of the video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys did enjoy. Let me know what you thought about in the comments below. Whether you agree or disagree with whatever I had to say. Maybe drop in one of your opinions as well. Also subscribe. And also follow me on Instagram, as I'll put a smile on my face. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go get some sleep back from that kid that was being loud and that couldn't sit down. Can't you tell I don't have kids yet? But, yeah. Okay, bye.